Okay, next section. Do you really need this? I record everything. Okay. Law of cosine, last one. Very easy. The reason that it's very easy is you learned it last year. And also, it is just Pythagorean theorem. So let's look at another triangle. A, B, C. And we have three sides. A, B, C. Okay, let's say that this time, I want you to solve the triangle, but this time the only information I give you is the three sides, A, B, C. So I give you three sides, A, B, C, and I want you to figure out angles A, B, C. So the question is, can you use law of sines?
Yeah.
No, you don't even have one angle to start with. Right? You only have three sides. There is no angle that you know. There is no way to solve it with law of sines. You have no way to do this but law of cosine. All right, let's think about what law of cosine is. It's really easy. So law of cosine says, first of all, what's the Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and it only works on, so let's write it this way. C squared is A squared plus B squared. It only works on what? Right triangle. So does it work on this triangle? No. So, however, law of cosine is basically like Pythagorean theorem. But because it is not a right angle, we need to subtract some stuff out. So we need to subtract out 2AB cosine of C. Okay, so again, you're just going to memorize it as if it's Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, but because it is not a right triangle, you need to subtract out this factor where, you know, this is basically saying it's not a right triangle. How do you memorize that? It's 2 times these two sides cosine of the angle that is here, which is actually in between AB. Okay, if you look at this, A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. Okay, so basically it is like a V with an angle in between. All right, it's always like that. So A squared plus B squared minus 2AB and the cosine of the angle in between. Okay? All right, so let's say that your formula changed a little bit. B squared plus A squared, I'm sorry, that's going to be exactly the same. A squared plus C squared. What do you need to subtract out? So B squared is equal to A squared plus C squared and then minus what? Cosine B, very good. Okay, so then A squared is equal to what? B squared plus C squared and then? Minus what? 2BC cosine A. All right, easy stuff. Okay, so now let's go ahead and solve this. Next one. Solve triangle ABC given that side A is 11, side B is 5, and angle C is 20 degrees. So let's go ahead and draw a picture. A, B, C. Side A is 11, B is 5, angle C is 20. Solve the triangle. So we need to figure out everything about this triangle. So angle A, angle B, angle C, side A, side B, side C. Angle A don't know, B don't know, C is 20. Side A is 11, side B is 5, C don't know. Okay, how do we set up this equation for law of cosine? We know AB, C squared, okay, C squared is equal to 11 squared plus 5 squared. Okay, good. Cosine 20. All right, now let's think about this equation. So, this is pretty easy to apply. It's calculating that every year there's someone who does this wrong. You gotta do PAMDAS. PAMDAS says parentheses first, no parentheses. Second, exponents. We need to figure out the exponents first. And then multiplication. Multiply this whole thing together. Every year someone wants to do this. They want to do this whole thing first and then cosine 20. Wrong, please. Don't do that. So we're at honors pre-calc. We cannot do the operation wrong. We are not going to do this part first. Okay, that makes no sense. This one, multiply all together and then add them and subtract. Make sure you're in degrees, not radian. Last thing people always forget, square root it. Your number will be huge if you don't square root. You're going to be in the hundreds. And then you're going to say, I hope you will say, that makes no sense. Your number is not that big. Yeah, that's even scarier. So if you don't square root it and the numbers are actually similar enough, then it's a little bit scary. Need to remember square root it. You're looking, if you just plug it into the formula, you're just looking at c squared. You need to find c. Okay, once you have c, let me know. Very, very tricky, actually. Okay, c is 6.5. Now, at this point, you may be very happy and said, I got all the sides filled out and I have a pair where I can do law of sines. Don't do law of sines. Because law of sines, remember what is the limitation on your calculator for sine? Only negative 90 to 90, right? If you keep using law of sines, you will never find out that there is an obtuse angle. Okay, so what I would do if I were you is if you start with the law of cosine, end with law of cosine. Basically use law of cosine the whole way through. Because what is the limitation on cosine? Inverse cosine. 0 to 180. It can find the entire triangle. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, okay, inverse cosine is from 0 to 180. That is the entire range of a triangle, right? Triangle can only be up to 180 degrees. Okay. And then inverse cosine is only from negative 90 to 90, so it only finds everything between negative 90 to 90. So law of cosine is always better to use than law of sine. So go ahead and continue solving this problem with law of cosine instead of law of sine. Let me just show you one just in case. Let's say that you want to find angle A. So that's going to be A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine A. So a squared is 11 squared is equal to 5 squared plus 6.5 squared minus 2 times 5 times 6.5 cosine A. Okay, PAMDAS applies. You need to subtract out 5 squared, subtract out 6.5 squared, divide by this, and then inverse cosine, okay? Please do not add all this together, divide it out or subtract it out, whatever you are planning to do. That would be wrong. Subtract this, divide this, and then inverse cosine. Are you guys okay? Okay, so 11 squared minus 5 squared minus 6.5 squared divided by negative 2, 5, and 6.5. That's equal to cosine A. And then you want to just do inverse cosine to figure out A. Okay, so angle A is 144.8 degrees, and then B is 15.2 degrees. No? 135. I'll check. Yeah, about 145. It's just how much you rounded. Okay, let's have you try the next one. This one has no angle at all. It is just all three sides. don't round too early. I guess that's my advice. Don't round too early. The earlier you round, the farther away you'll be from the answer. So in the beginning, I would keep everything to at least 3 digits and then round at the very end. Okay, angle A, angle B, angle C. A is 95.7 degrees, angle B is 50.7 degrees, and C is 33.6 degrees. Okay, again, please don't round until the very end. All right, we're going to skip the next practice because it's just the same thing again. And then let's go to a triangle area question. Okay, so normally triangle area formula is 1/2 base times height. You all know this already. Now, what does base and height, what's the relationship between the base and the height? The height is a very special length. Yes, height has to be perpendicular to base. If it's not perpendicular to base, you have to find the line that is going to be perpendicular to the base. So for example, this one, if it's a right angle, then it's just base times height, and then divide by 2. If it's an obtuse angle, okay, then we have to figure out what the height is, right? You have to draw a straight line down and then call that height, and then do a base times height and divide by 2. Okay, base is still just this length, okay? It's not extended. If you have an acute angle, where is the height? In the middle, so you have to, again, draw a straight line down, and then create a height there, and then base here. Okay, so area of a triangle. So this one is just 1/2 base times height because base and height are perpendicular to each other. Now, what happens if you have an obtuse angle and now you have to figure out that height? Well, it depends on the angles. So let's call this point A, B, C. And so this is A, B, and C is this side. The question is, how high is H? How high is H? Okay, so think about this. This is a right triangle. Use the size that I give you. Find out how high H is in terms of all the other sides. Okay, so talk to your partner, how high is H? So use the stuff that you learned last week about finding that H with a right triangle. Talk to your partner, how high is H? Hint. How high is H? Well, let's take a look at this here. This is basically the red triangle, but I redrew it on the right. So C is my reference angle. What is H and A relative to C? What trig function? Huh? Sine. So sine of C is equal to H over A, right? Okay, so sine C is equal to H over A. So what is H? A sine C. So area, 1/2 base times height, but we don't know what height is, so it's going to be 1/2 base times A sine C. Okay, which is 1/2 AB sine C. So I am basically deriving the formula for you guys. That way you're not always thinking like, I'm just memorizing formula, but I don't know why the formula works. Okay, so let's try another one. Acute angle. So we need to figure out this side H. Let me change this to a different color. Let's say this side is A, this side is C. This is angle A, C, and B. We need to figure out H. Again, I'm going to give you a hint. This triangle. How high is H? How high is H? H over A.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's the same thing. Yes, it is the same thing. Sine C is equal to H over A. So H is equal to A sine C. So again, area is 1/2 base times height. And again, height is A sine C. So then this is 1/2 AB sine C. That means if I give you any kind of triangle, you can figure out the area, even if it is not right triangle. You don't even have to find the height. You just need to memorize this formula, and then you can solve the area for any kind of triangle. So, triangle area. 1/2 AB sine C. So this is for any any kind of triangle. How are you going to remember that? It is AB sine C. So AB and then sine the angle in between. That would be 1/2 AB sine of the angle in between. That is the area of a triangle. Huh? Oh. All right, let's try this one. Find the area of a regular octagon. Octagon is 8 sides, inscribed inside a circle of radius 9 inches. Do you guys need me to help you get started, or you can figure out the area yourself? Okay, so you need to figure out the area of this octagon. And then you know that the radius is 9. It has 8 sides, obviously. So figure out how you're going to find the area. So go ahead and do that. All right, so let's break this triangle, octagon first. This octagon is basically 8 triangles. And each triangle has this side, which is 9 and 9. And you know that the whole thing is a circle, right? So it's 360. And so there are 8 triangles. That means each one is 45 degrees. Now, to use the triangle formula, you really don't need this side at all. You just need 2 sides and an angle in between. So the area of one triangle is 1/2 AB, so that's 9 and 9, and then sine 45. Please remember it's sine 45, not cosine 45. People keep getting them confused. Okay, so that is 28.64, and then there are 8 triangles, so multiply by 8. So the area of the octagon is equal to 229.1 inch squared. All right, last part. This last one, I would say it's an optional formula. So if you are given a triangle with just 3 sides, the area is square root of s times s minus a times s minus b times s minus c. Oh. Okay. This formula is optional because you don't need this formula to find the area of a triangle. You can always figure it out some other way. So it just makes it a little faster, but you don't need it if you don't memorize it. You can always do it with law of cosine, all that stuff.